The rain had just stopped, leaving the road slick and glistening under the bruised evening sky. Broken clouds drifted like ghosts across the horizon, and the wind carried the scent of wet asphalt and fear. On the side of a lonely highway stood a woman beside a wrecked car. Her hair clung to her face, soaked and tangled. Her clothes were torn, spattered with mud, and her hands bore rope burns deep, red marks that told of struggle and pain. Every few seconds, she looked over her shoulder, as though expecting someone or something to appear from the darkness. Then came the sound. Deep growling, relentless. The unmistakable roar of motorcycles. Her heart froze. Headlights broke through the fog, 6 massive bikes rolling like thunder. The men who rode them wore black jackets, their backs branded with a skull-end wings patch that read, Hell's Sentinels MC. They stopped in a half-circle around her. At the front of the pack sat Ryder Cole, tall, broad-shouldered, a man whose silence carried more weight than words ever could. His eyes, cold steel blue, had seen too much of life, and maybe too much death. He pulled off his helmet, studying her. "Car broke down?" he asked, voice low, gruff. The woman didn't answer. Her lips trembled. She whispered something, barely audible through the wind. Don't touch me, just end it fast." Ryder frowned. Around him, the bikers exchanged uneasy glances. That wasn't something a stranded woman said. That was something a broken soul whispered when she had no fight left. He took a cautious step closer. She flinched, backing away. The motion tugged at her torn shirt. One button popped loose, revealing the edge of a scar burned deep into her shoulder. Ryder froze. The woman noticed his stare and tried to cover it, but it was too late. The mark, that distinct burn pattern, was seared into his memory. He'd seen it before. Years ago. In flames. On a terrified little girl he tried to save. A girl everyone said had died. "No," Ryder whispered, his breath catching. He stepped forward, his voice shaking for the first time in years. "Lena." The woman's eyes widened, the name hit her like a bullet. She looked at him, really looked, and her lips parted in disbelief. "Ryder." The rest of the bikers stood silent. The night wind howled through the trees. What began as a rescue, or a threat, had just turned into something no one could have imagined. Ryder reached for her slowly, almost afraid to touch her, afraid she might vanish like a ghost from the past. But she didn't. She was real. And she was alive. Ryder stood still for a long moment, staring at her as the world seemed to fall away. The sound of the engines faded, the wind stilled, and even the rain seemed to pause midair. He took a step closer. "Lena, we buried you." Her eyes filled with tears, but there was no softness in them, only pain. "You shouldn't have." The bikers shifted behind Ryder, uneasy. One of them, Jax, muttered, "What the hell's going on, brother?" Ryder didn't answer. His chest rose and fell slowly, his mind caught somewhere between disbelief and fury. He removed his leather jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She shivered, not just from the cold, but from memories. "Who did this to you?" Ryder asked, his voice trembling with restrained rage. She looked away, staring down the dark highway. "It doesn't matter, they'll come back for me, they always do." "It matters to me." Her lips quivered. For a second, the fierce biker before her was no longer a stranger but the same young man who used to lift her onto a motorbike when she was just a child. The man who used to say, "Nothing bad's gonna happen to you while I'm around." But something had happened, and he hadn't been there. Ryder motioned toward his crew. "We're taking her back." They hesitated. "Boss, you sure? We don't even know who's chasing her." "I said," Ryder growled, "we're taking her back." That tone didn't invite questions. They rode for miles through winding mountain roads, rain falling harder, thunder echoing in the distance. Lena clung to Ryder, her head resting weakly against his back. Every turn of the wheels brought her closer to safety, or at least What passed for safety in their world? They stopped outside an abandoned lumber mill that served as the Hell's Sentinel's base, half workshop, half fortress. Inside, the smell of oil and leather filled the air. Ryder led her to a small room in the back, a cot, a heater, a table stacked with maps and whiskey bottles. He set her down gently, handed her a towel, then crouched in front of her. "Talk to me, Lena. Where have you been all these years?" She hesitated, her fingers twisting the towel. "I tried to run that night when the fire started. I didn't make it far. They found me." "Who?" Her eyes lifted, hollow, haunted. "The Black Hounds." Ryder stiffened. The Black Hounds were a rival outlaw club, violent, merciless. Their leader, Victor Hale, was known for burning his mark, a flame-shaped scar, into anyone who betrayed him. Ryder's gaze drifted to her shoulder, that same scar. "Why would they take you?" he demanded. Lena looked down. "Because of you." Ryder's breath caught. "They said you stole from them, that you cost them millions. They thought I could make you come back, but when you didn't, they made me disappear instead." The words hit like a hammer. Ryder rose, packing the room, his hands clenched into fists. "Those bastards." "You can't fight them," she said quietly. "You don't know what they've become." Ryder stopped. His reflection glared back at him from a cracked mirror, eyes burning with old guilt and new rage. "Oh, I know exactly what they are," he said darkly. "I made them what they are." She looked up sharply. He turned toward her, eyes shadowed. "Before I built the Sentinels, I rode with the Hounds. Victor and I built that monster together." Lena's breath hitched. "You." "He wanted blood. I wanted brotherhood. When I left, he took everything: money, drugs, people, including you." Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. Lena's eyes glistened. "Then you know there's no running from him." Ryder knelt beside her, voice low but firm. "There's no running, no, but there's fighting. And this time I'm not losing you again." She tried to speak, but the words broke in her throat. He touched her shoulder gently, not the scar, but the skin beside it, a silent promise that she wasn't alone anymore. Outside, thunder cracked, and the bikers prepped their weapons. The Hell's Sentinels were gearing up for war. Ryder looked at Lena one last time before stepping out. "When they come," he said, "you stay behind me." She met his gaze, the girl who had once been lost, and the man who had once failed her, and whispered, "Then it won't end fast this time, will it?" Ryder's lips twitched into the faintest hint of a smile. "No, this time it ends right." He walked out into the storm, engines roaring to life. The war between the Hell's Sentinels and the Black Hounds was about to begin. The night stretched heavy and dark over the lumber mill. Rain drummed on the tin roof, blending with the low growl of engines waiting to ignite. Inside, the Hell's Sentinels prepared for a fight that none of them might walk away from. Ryder stood by the workbench, a pistol laid out before him, his hands moving with steady precision as he loaded each bullet. Every click echoed in the silence like a heartbeat. Across the room, Jax tightened the straps on his vest, checking his shotgun. No one spoke. They didn't need to. The sound of thunder rolled again, except this time it wasn't thunder. It was engines. Ryder's head snapped up. "They're here." Lena flinched. She was sitting near the corner, wrapped in a blanket, pale but defiant. Her eyes darted to the door. She could already feel the vibration of tires on wet ground. Jax peeked through a crack in the metal shutters. "Dozen bikes, maybe more. They've got the Hound insignia." Ryder holstered his gun and turned to Lena. "Stay here. Don't move until I say." She shook her head. "They won't stop at you. They want me." He stepped closer, voice sharp. "They'll have to go through me first." Outside, lights cut through the rain, beams of white slicing through the darkness as the Black Hounds rolled into the yard. Their leader, Victor Hale, climbed off his black Harley, slicked back his wet hair, and smiled that cruel, familiar smile. "Well, well," Victor called, his voice booming across the open space. The prodigal brother returns. Ryder walked out into the storm, coat whipping in the wind. The rain plastered his hair to his face, but his eyes were cold, unreadable. "Let her go, Victor," he said evenly. "She's not part of this anymore." Victor laughed low and mean. "Not part of it, she's the reason it started." He gestured toward the building. "She knows too much, and you, Ryder, you owe me a debt." "I owe you nothing." Victor's grin widened. "Oh, you owe me plenty. When you left, you took my brothers, my business, my pride." He took a step forward, lightning flashing behind him. "And now I'll take what you have left." Ryder's jaw tightened. "You'll take a bullet if you try." The two men stared at each other, a standoff built from years of betrayal and blood. Then Victor's men drew their weapons. The first gunshot cracked the silence apart. Chaos erupted. The sentinels returned fire from the cover of their bikes and crates. Sparks flew as bullets ripped through metal. Engines roared, glass shattered, men shouted. The storm became a battlefield. Inside, Lena crouched low as gunfire echoed outside. Her heart pounded, but then she saw something through the crack in the wall. Victor wasn't aiming for Ryder anymore. Two of his men were circling toward the back, toward her. She grabbed the small revolver Ryder had left on the table, hands shaking, and stepped out into the rain. Ryder saw her too late. "Lena, get back inside." But she was already moving. She fired once, a clean shot that hit one of the hounds square in the chest. The man fell instantly. The other lunged, grabbing her arm, knocking the gun away. Ryder charged forward, tackling the attacker to the ground. They fought in the mud, fists and fury colliding until Ryder landed a brutal blow that didn't let the man rise again. When he looked up, Victor was standing only a few feet away, a pistol aimed straight at Lena. "Move," Victor hissed, "and she dies." Ryder froze. Rain poured down his face, mixing with blood. "Put it down, brother," Victor sneered. "You can't save everyone." Lena's eyes locked with Ryder's, no fear, just quiet acceptance. "End it fast," she whispered again. But this time, Ryder understood. She wasn't asking him to give up. She was asking him not to hesitate. Victor's finger tightened on the trigger, but Ryder was faster. The blast echoed through the night. Victor staggered backward, disbelief frozen on his face before collapsing into the mud. His gun fell from his hand, sinking into the water. For a long moment everything went still. The rain softened. The engines idled in silence. The fight was over. The remaining hounds backed away, defeated, dragging their wounded. The sentinels stood watch until the last of them disappeared into the storm. Ryder turned to Lena, his chest heaving. "You shouldn't have come out." She gave a faint smile. "I wasn't going to lose you again." He let out a shaky breath, half a laugh, half a sob. He stepped closer, brushing the wet hair from her face. "You're safe now." Lena shook her head gently. "No one's ever really safe, Ryder, but for the first time I'm not afraid." The bikers watched as their leader wrapped his arms around the woman he thought he'd lost forever. The rain washed away the blood, the smoke, and maybe a little of the past. As dawn broke over the soaked highway, Ryder stood beside his bike, Lena leaning against him. The sentinels revved their engines one by one, the sound rolling like thunder again, not of war this time, but of rebirth. Ryder looked at her. "Where to now?" She smiled faintly. "Anywhere the road leads." He nodded, started the engine, and together they rode off into the rising sun, not as ghosts of their pasts, but as survivors of it. And for the first time in years, Ryder felt something he'd forgotten the taste of. Peace.